Hello everyone, my name is Tom Barrella, and for the better part of 2 decades, I've been the finance and investment expert at one of America's top high schools. There, I've taught thousands of students to become financially literate. I'm thrilled to announce that I've just released a new book titled FinanciaLit that I believe can help you become financially literate. In this video, we're going to take a tour of FinanciaLit. So let's get started. The first chapter in the book is on the topic of wealth, and certainly when we think of wealth, our thoughts first turn to money. It seems like there's no limit to the amount of wealth that tech billionaires can accumulate. But Apple co-founder Steve Jobs was also a tech billionaire, and he's no longer with us. As the saying goes, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. In this chapter, we're going to take a broad look at the ways that we can be fortunate. We can say we are blessed, and maybe even to say we are wealthy. And the reason is that the book helps us achieve our financial goals, but we want to make sure that's not done to the detriment of the other important aspects of our lives. At the end of the chapter, I provide some hints as to the person I've, after careful study, identified as the wealthiest person in the world. I've hidden the name of the person in the middle of the book as an extra encouragement to keep reading. When you come upon that name, I want you to think about that person for a little while. If you think you can find somebody, or you come across somebody who's even wealthier, I'd love for you to contact me and nominate that person, and maybe we'll get a chance to discuss it down the road. So there you go, chapter 1 on wealth. Our second chapter in the book is on the topic of readiness, because all the financial knowledge in the world will not be beneficial unless it's combined with a commitment to act. We're going to set up a dynamic between current you and future you, and as you might suspect, they are in conflict with one another. If all the wants of current you must always be met all the time, chances are future you is going to be in a very insecure financial position. We should state that the majority of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. If you don't want that to be you, you must get ready to carve your own path. So there it is, chapter 2 on readiness. Who's ready for chapter 3? Chapter 3 is the first chapter that talks about money, but not invested money, but money in the terms of what it will buy. Basically, what I'm saying is that we're going to learn about inflation. Inflation is seen as the rise in prices of the goods and services that we consume. And so what it means is that if prices are rising, if you stand still, you're basically going backwards. What I mean by that is if you put money in a box, in a drawer, and you take it out a year later, it's going to buy less. So this should really kick us in the butt and get us thinking about investing and earning a rate of return that is higher than the rate of inflation, which will grow our wealth in real terms. If any of this jargon is confusing to you, just bear with me because it all will be revealed in the book. I can promise you that. So chapter 3 again talks about inflation. It talks about the ravages of inflation. One of the examples and one of the ways that you can basically see how over decades inflation can just crush people's purchasing power and their ability to do things with their money is that if you turn to grandparents, you may learn that they were able to buy a home, their first home, for what it cost you to buy a car. So when you think about that, you have to realize that prices have been soaring over decades, and that's how we look back at it, because it's very hard to tell inflation from year to year. And one of the reasons why that is that when we look at prices of goods and services, they bounce. They go from $1.99, they're on sale for $1.49. Then they go back to $1.99, then they're going to go back to $1.69, and back and forth and back and forth. So what happens is it makes it extremely difficult for us to follow the actual trend line, if you will, of prices. So just to show you the importance of inflation, the chapter 3 on inflation ends like this. It says, colorless, orderless, rarely noticed, inflation is the carbon monoxide of finance. It has killed many a financial dream. Let's make sure yours is not among them. All right, on to chapter 4, budgeting. Budgeting is simply making a plan to take the income you make and allocate it to expenses, and then hopefully have a significant amount left over for saving. What do we save for? Lots of things. For higher education, to purchase a home, for a dream vacation, or for living a rewarding retirement. This chapter follows a fictitious person named Justine Brown through her life, starting with her first summer job and summer budget, through to her being a single professional living on her own, And then it fast forwards another decade and shows her budget as a homeowning married mother of two. So I hope you'll enjoy, when you get the book, going through the adventures of Justine Brown through her life through the lens of budgeting. Who's ready for our next chapter? That's going to be on banking, chapter 5. A lot of people don't realize that the main function of a bank is not really to earn you money. You're not putting your money at risk, and so what you earn in the bank is going to be very small, probably less than the rate of inflation. And so to use a bank to basically achieve your dreams is probably not the way to go. But a bank does have a useful purpose. It makes your funds available to you when you want them, and that's critically important. We're going to look at the different types of bank accounts, of course: checking accounts, savings accounts, certificates of deposits, which are abbreviated CD. We're going to explain how to manage your bank account, how you start and maintain what's called a ledger or a register. You're going to see that on your banking app. That's all done for you, but that's also going to leave you to the whims of that bank and that app. If something's wrong, if there's something you miss, you're going to be basically out of luck because you didn't maintain your own bank balance. So I'm going to explain all of that to you in this chapter. You can do it if you like, or you can just rely on your bank and banking app to get things correctly and take your chances. We're going to explain different types of banks as well. There are the name brand banks like Citibank, Chase, and Bank of America that have branches all over the country and ATMs all over the country. We're going to take a look at credit unions, which is basically not technically a bank, but they provide banking services, and they often have more attractive rates than banks, so they are basically absolutely worth investing in. And then we're going to look at internet banks, ones that don't have any locations, no physical locations. You drive down the road, there are no what we call branches, there are no stores, as TD Bank likes to call their locations. So how can we do banking without the banking building? A lot of you, if you're younger, realize that, wait a minute, you have never really been into a bank, so what is the problem? Well, you may on occasion need a check and something called a certified check or a money order, and we even discuss ways that you could do your internet banking with an internet bank and then also get the checking needs met without even having checks from your own account. So there's a lot of great stuff in the banking chapter. We even talk about Venmo, Zelle, and how fintech is an abbreviation for financial technology, or technology applied to finance to advance the state of banking and what you can do with banking. And we all know from hitting some buttons and transferring money around that fintech is already having a tremendous impact in transforming banking as we sit currently. With chapter 6, we are truly in the heart of the book on perhaps the most important topic in personal finance: credit. Credit is the receipt of goods or services before they're paid for, or it could be taking a loan from a bank. In any of these instances, we are in debt. It might not surprise you to learn that Americans are heavily in debt. In fact, that answers the question, what does a population that largely lives paycheck to paycheck do when an unexpected expense arrives? We go into debt. How much debt? Americans have about $1 trillion of credit card debt, another $1 trillion of auto loan debt, and over $1.5 trillion of student loan debt. In this chapter, we're going to explain the different types of credit that banks can extend to us. One is the conventional term loan that is used to buy big ticket items like cars and homes. We make a payment every month for a set term, and then our loan is paid off. We're going to look at leasing as an alternative, especially with regard to automobiles, and to see how that weighs and the advantages and disadvantages are of leasing versus buying. We're going to take a look at revolving credit. Revolving credit is a fancy way to identify credit cards. The idea is that you have a certain amount of available credit. When you make purchases, you're using it. When you send a check to the bank to pay off your debt, the credit becomes available again, and we revolve the process. The last type of credit we're going to look at is called a credit line. A credit line is very interesting because it allows us to access the amount of credit we need when we need it, and we only pay interest on the amount that we have borrowed for the time it's been borrowed. We're going to explore credit scoring in this chapter, including how your credit score is calculated, and of course identify the ways that we can maintain a high score. And a high score is critically important. It's going to affect the rate we pay when we go to borrow money. We're going to explore credit protection services. There are a host of companies out there charging $20 to $25 per month to provide monitoring of our credit situation. It might surprise you to learn that many of these services are already available to you for free. And then finally, we're going to take a look at bankruptcy. Hundreds of thousands of Americans declare bankruptcy. What does it achieve and what does it not achieve? And what type of person would file for bankruptcy? We're hopefully going to destigmatize bankruptcy because many ordinary Americans do declare bankruptcy for very ordinary reasons. So there you have it, Chapter 6 on credit. Was it Benjamin Franklin who said there's only two sure things about life? That would be death and taxes. Yes, Chapter 7 discusses taxes. Taxes are a fact of life. Taxes fund important government services. And if we're to be informed citizens, we should understand taxes. We're going to take a look at user fees. User fees are fees charged to use, as the name implies, bridges and tunnels and roads and parking lots. And while you'd say, well, that doesn't sound like a tax, I'm going to challenge you to read that section of the book and see if you can find how you're being taxed through user fees. We're going to take a look at sales taxes, of course. We pay them when we purchase goods. We're going to look at property taxes on the property that you own. Mostly people's homes are what is taxed, but other high value items such as cars or vehicles can be taxed in certain and are taxed in certain states. We're going to look at income taxes. One subset of income taxes is the Social Security and Medicare taxes that are dedicated to those two programs. So we're going to describe those programs, and we're going to describe the taxes and the ins and outs of those two taxes, which are known as payroll taxes. And finally, we're going to look at the estate tax. The estate tax, which has been labeled the death tax, it basically occurs upon someone dying with assets and seeking to transfer them to the next generation. The good news is that there is a very generous and very high exemption amount, so the vast majority, over 99% of estates, are not taxed. But the issue still looms out there, and we're going to talk about it. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the topic of who is or isn't paying their fair share. This is in the public. This is a big deal as people look around and sadly, what are they thinking? They're showing a little envy, saying, do you know what? I'm working hard. This person's working hard. I don't think they're paying their fair share. Is that really true? We've got a long discussion in there about who isn't paying their fair share through actual examples. We look at the tech billionaires. We look at the people making whose wealth basically was generated through share price appreciation, right, of the shares of the companies they founded. We're going to look at the high income earners. And so we're going to basically beat that topic up enough that you're going to feel very well informed when you decide to move forward and take a specific stance on that topic. So there you have it, taxes. Folks, we're deep in the heart of this book now. On to Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is about insurance. Without insurance, a lifetime of hard work and sacrifice could literally be gone in moments. Insurance is really about risk management. We're going to explore different strategies for handling risk, and if we can't manage it ourselves, we're going to have to transfer it to an insurance company, of course, in return for a payment for the insurance. So we're going to start with the definition of many fundamental terms in insurance. It's almost like a world unto its own. You have terms like policy and premium and deductible and copay and whatnot. And so we're going to explore all of those and define them very clearly. We're going to discuss the different components of insurance. Many insurances have coverage for property damage, but one thing that a lot of discussions don't include is this idea of personal liability. You walking around, you're an imperfect person, we're all imperfect. A moment of carelessness can cause an injury or damage that could be tremendous. And so insurance that provides us personal liability coverage is something that's worth its weight in gold. So we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about that topic. Another thing we're going to do is talk about the different types of insurance, of course, with all the specifics and all the key components. We're going to look at homeowners insurance, automobile insurance. We're going to look at health insurance, life insurance, disability, and long-term care insurance. So there it is, Chapter 8, Insurance. All right, this is the chapter that many of you may be waiting for. This is the topic, investing, where I've earned my chops, so to speak, as a financial guru at my high school. Every year I teach my investment course to about 100 students. So let's get started. We're going to take a look at the relationship between the rate of return an investment has the possibility of earning and the risk of that investment. And we're going to learn that direct relationship. We're going to introduce this idea of not just a rate of return or how much we're actually earning and how to measure it, but how to measure it in what's called real terms, which subtracts the effects, the ravaging effects of inflation. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to introduce the major types of investments, such as stocks and bonds and real estate and mutual funds and whatnot. We're going to define essential concepts that are going to lay the foundation for us to talk about an investment approach for your future. So we're going to be defining terms like a portfolio. What is an asset class? We're going to talk about what market indexes are and how they came to be. We're going to talk about mutual funds and much more. We're going to compare, and this is the order of the day, active investing versus passive investing. We're going to look at actual investment scenarios where someone is investing their money using an active manager and someone is investing their money passively, and we're going to see the outcomes for those people. We're also going to investigate the challenge that is retirement. The biggest issue with retirement is knowing or not knowing how long we're going to live. And that poses tremendous problems, because if we spend our money too quickly and we live long, we're going to outlive our money. If we live extremely frugally but then pass away early, we will have not really taken advantage of the promise of the retirement that we worked so hard to achieve. So this is a very important chapter. One of the last things we'll do in this chapter is we'll talk about standards of care. Many of you in this world are going to want to specialize in the profession you choose and want to hire a financial advisor to help you put your money in the right places. Advisors have different standards of care, and which means that how they must treat you. And so we're going to explore that topic as well. And so there it is, investing. Okay, we've made it. It's chapter 10, the final chapter. It's titled Onward. The first part of this chapter talks about my concerns, my overarching concerns for the United States and the global economy. And these are some concerns that I hope you will keep in mind as you move forward in your financial life. A second part of this chapter discusses advice. I have a lot of ideas that you can implement right away so that you feel like you're making true, meaningful advances on your financial plan. The third part of this chapter is me asking you, the reader, to get involved. Financial literacy education in the United States is not very good. Even in my fabulous high school, 3 out of 4 students graduate without having taken the course, and that's very unfortunate. And then finally, I have an exhortation urging you to be confident in your financial knowledge. You made a big investment in this book. You are financially literate. You should have complete confidence in conversing with insurance companies and credit card companies and banks and benefits managers and any other person you need to communicate with to advance your financial goals. So again, if you have completed this book, I assure you, you are financial lit. Thank you so much for investing your time to learn about the book FinanciaLit. It is available on Amazon in paperback and in Kindle form. I encourage you to also find and follow me on the various social media platforms that you see on your screen right now. I would love to know what you learned from the book, as well as any questions, and to be able to answer any questions that you may have. I'd like to take this conversation online, so I look forward to seeing you there.